Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about the 2021 lesbian romantic dramedy Christmas at the Ranch, which is very much a movie with the premise in the title, and which should not be confused with the 2024 release of exactly the same name. That one has a heterosexual romance instead and a significantly better IMDb rating. So this film begins with a workaholic career woman, Hayley Hollis, returning to the family ranch for the holiday season. Hayley intends the visit to be short and has no plans to stay any longer than familial duty requires. As far as she is concerned, the ranch, with all of its outdoorsy workings and twee Christmas hayrise, is very much in her past. And perhaps if she were being truly honest with herself, Hayley resents and feels a little bit inadequate about the way her brother and grandmother, who still live on the ranch, rave about their superwoman ranch hand, Kate. Hayley's plans for a quick escape are thwarted when she realizes the financial difficulties that the ranch is experiencing. Like Emma from Vida, which I discussed a few weeks ago, Hayley isn't able to stand by and watch her family's business get gobbled up by greedy neighbours. Also, like Emma from Vida, Hayley prefers romantic companions of the female orientation, and the annoyingly perfect Kate just happens to be on the same page in that regard. Of course, there's no way two such diametrically opposed personalities could ever fall in love, sweet love, right? So this movie comes from Tello Films, which is apparently both the longest running streaming platform, specifically for and by the LGBTQ community, but is also the first lesbian network to receive an Emmy nomination. Now, for someone of my generation, the most recognisable name on this film is the former Bionic Woman Lindsay Wagner, but younger viewers might be more familiar with Amanda Righetti, who played Grace Van Pelt on The Mentalist. And particularly sharp-eyed and queer-aware audience members might spot the name Dom PC in the soundtrack credits. This is musician and actor Dominique Provost-Chalky, whose on-screen work I enjoyed in the urban fantasy series Winona Earp. Unfortunately, despite decent cast credentials, a well regarded production company, and my own willingness to overlook a few flaws if I got a heartwarming holiday romance in the process, I didn't care much for this film. I didn't think it worked very well. So let's talk about what I think went wrong. And the first problem is the writing. I actually wonder if the script went through lots of last minute changes and rewrites, which may explain some inconsistencies so blatant that it at times feels like entire chunks of a different film have been left in the finished product, or certainly of an earlier draft. For example, the script goes to some lengths to establish that Hayley owns a dog and that this animal is important to her. It is a much beloved pet. And then she leaves the dog behind when she goes to the ranch, and it is never mentioned again. Now, I'm not a pet person myself, but I know people who are, and there is no way a fur baby mama goes weeks on end without ever mentioning her precious Poochie. Then there's the fact that the film's characters make much of Hayley's competence, both in the office and on the ranch. We're told many times about how good she is at this and how helpful she was as a youngster, blah, 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 blah. But the events of the movie just don't follow through on her supposed white collar credentials, and when it comes to ranch, what we are shown often runs directly counter to what we are told. Character dialogue, for instance, insists that she was a capable ranch hand in her youth, but there's a scene in the film where Hayley can't even get on a horse by herself. Said scene exists purely for Kate to be there to try and help Hayley and for them to argue about the unwanted offer of assistance. And sure, two characters arguing is movie shorthand for they're going to hook up, so giving them opportunities to do so is good, but maybe don't trigger that argument by directly contradicting your own dialogue. Arguing is, in fact, the main thing that Hayley and Kate will do for most of this film, which is fine in and of itself. Enemies to lovers is a popular trope in romantic comedies, and it's true that the only time the pair really show much spark together is in their squabbles. But the spats never really go anywhere or lead to anything. If you're going to go with enemies to lovers, you should use the heat of the arguments to build up the heat of the relationship, and the film doesn't build that heat. To be frank, in fact, Christmas at the Ranch is not a film where the word heat has any real presence. This is as safely chaste and sweet a romance as any you'd ever expect to get on the Hallmark Channel. It just happens to be two ladies performing the awkwardly closed-lip romantic kisses this time. In fact, the whole relationship between Hayley and Kate, which is, let's face it, the entire point of the movie, is really lacking in any kind of verve. I will acknowledge that the movie does establish their initial mutual attraction reasonably well, before they realize who each other are. But after that initial attraction flames out, the script makes only the most rudimentary efforts to establish a connection between them before they declare their undying love. It's like they've said, oh, we had a meet cute, right? Job done. The conviction of the relationship is not helped by the film's acting, much of which is quite flat and wooden. Given that the main cast members all have decent to solid television careers, my inclination is the problem lay behind the scenes. Quite probably, this was a production where meeting deadlines and budgets, in particular former, there's not much point in releasing a Christmas movie at Easter, were the primary criteria of success, and whether the final product was actually all that good was at best a secondary concern. I have worked on some projects like that in my past, I have to say. Not in the film industry, but I've certainly worked on projects like that. The most enjoyable performances in the films actually come from a couple of secondary characters, Masonry, the New Age woo-woo woman, and Lucy, the hotel receptionist. What little we see of either suggests that they have the potential to be fun and were honestly more engaging and memorable than the stressy workaholic and stoic cowgirl leads. So yeah, if you're looking for some queer romance to warm your heart this holidays, I suggest avoiding The Ranch and, say, seeking out Happiest Season instead. That's a good little movie. Next time, it's been a while since I've discussed the iconic radioactive kaiju Godzilla, so let's rectify that by taking a look at two of his early 70s outings. First against the buzzsaw monster Gigan, and then against the aquatic beetle god Megalon. But that is next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you've seen Christmas at the Ranch, let me know what you thought of it.